Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Power of Grit. I am Gianna with Valafuoco Contractors, a tile installation company in Maryland, D.C., Virginia, and I am here with the beautiful Georgia Ezra, who founded Tiles of Ezra and is also the star of Design Down Under. And this event is part of the Thriving Mind series, which is all about community building, not just networking, but really building community, relationships, modeling reality, authenticity, failures, setbacks, and today we're going to talk about grit. And the first thing that I like to do whenever I start a session, which most of you, any of you have already been through this before, know, that I like to just take a moment to arrive. This is a mindfulness practice. So by the way, I am also a mindfulness meditation teacher and speaker. And we are just going to take this moment to arrive. I'm going to welcome you into this space. I know it's a little weird if you're not into practicing mindfulness, but this is a practice that I do with all my students. I speak to the DC area police force, first responders, corporate lawyers, bricklayers, tile setters, people in the disability community, all humans. This practice of taking a moment to arrive is essentially just giving us a moment to reset, even in a busy trade show. So I'm going to get weird, and I'm going to ask you to gently close your eyes for just a moment as I welcome you into this space. And I welcome all minds and bodies here today, all of us who left our homes and busy schedules and families to come to coverings. And I welcome all the ways in which we experience both our minds and our bodies. So you might be here with stress or excitement, anxiety, joy. Maybe you're carrying grief or fear or skepticism about some crazy mindfulness thing going on in the showroom floor. Whatever it is welcome in this space. I ask only that you bring your kind attention and a sense of curiosity. That was my attempt at doing a singing bell while holding a microphone. So that is your cue. Yeah, I can have Georgia over here. That was my cue to have you all open your eyes. So today we're going to talk about grit. And I'm going to just briefly, I'm the annoying one who has to do a little neuroscience or psychology background on all of this, on all of the mindfulness. So I want to share a little research that's been done that some of you may know about. There is a wonderful researcher named Angela Duckworth, if anyone's heard of her, and she was I believe a UPenn psychologist. She was in the corporate world, and she went out to study humans. And she looked at top performers in all different industries, academia, law, athletics, science, medicine. And she wanted to study and find out, these are top performers, and it's not my favorite word to use that, but people who'd really achieved incredible things. And so she went out to find out what was their secret sauce for, we can say, success, and success in all aspects of their lives, but specifically in this case, really talking about careers. And what she found was very interesting across the board. There were two consistent predictors of success. And it wasn't what you would have necessarily thought. It wasn't resources, money, the right connections, innate talent. These were also factors, but they were not the constant predictors. What she found was two very specific things. The first one was a sense of direction, knowing in a really deep way, maybe a way so deep you don't even admit it to others, what you want. And we can call that passion. And the second one was the commitment to continue hard work and really be resilient. And that was, we can call that perseverance. But when I talk about resilience, I mean getting back off the floor when you are depleted, embarrassed, feel hopeless or helpless. Getting back out there. That is really perseverance. And so she defined these. She said, let's put these two together and make a magic potion, and we're going to call that grit. And that is essentially what grit is. So when she went a little further, she looked into what does that really look like? Like, how did these incredible people demonstrate grit? And what she found was that the most determinant factor in success is how we deal with the really crappy stuff that happens that we don't plan for, the failures and the setbacks. And, you know, we can think of that in theory, right? It's getting back after you've been knocked down. But how do we do that? Can we learn grit? Can we learn grit? What do you think? Yes. Yes, we can. And I'm not saying it's easy. So what we're doing, we are dedicating this session today to, the first thing we want to do is I want to kind of give you an example from someone who is an industry icon and so inspiring to so many people. And she's not here to tell you how great she is and how easy her life is. She's going to tell you the yucky stuff that she's gone through, the stories in her head, the reality. And then we're going to do a couple practices later on really using mindfulness, neuroscience, and a self-compassion practice to harness our own grit. And then we're going to do a little fun stuff that if you want to contribute, you can. I do this with my police force clients all the time. It's called a failure jar. And I'll model for you. I'll share some of my icky failures also. So I'm going to have Georgia start, and we're going to talk about the power of grit. So for those of you, if you don't know who Gianna Ezra is, if any of you have ever heard of Tiles of Ezra, that really bougie, beautiful stuff that all the designers are specifying, and Zellige tile is an example of it. Authentic Zellige tile is different than some of the things you find on the market, and we'll also maybe go into a little bit of the story behind it. Georgia created Tiles of Ezra. By the way, I'm going to learn a lot about her whole path. I don't even know it yet, so I'm going to be learning with you. She is also the star of a show on Warner Brothers Discovery. I think it's on the Magnolia Network. Design Down Under, because once you hear her speak, you'll realize she has a magnificent accent. So I will sit down, and I'll try to do this gracefully in my skirt. And if it's not graceful, apologies. I'll be failing in some ways here on stage. So tell me first, Gianna Ezra, tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the show. And if anyone's not familiar with the show, you can just Google it, Design Down Under, and afterwards you can say you met a star today.
Thank you. By the way, my husband's also in the show, so we can embarrass him too.
He does not like to be the center of attention, but apologies for not including that.
Firstly, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you, Gianna, because she is the real deal. And unbeknown to everyone here in the room, we met last year at Coverings out of coincidence and became soul sisters. And I think I send a lot of voice messages on WhatsApp, but she is a convenient, constant, and I think that works well for both of us because we do like to talk, so we're forced to listen. So thank you for having me. You're amazing and vulnerable and authentic, which is exactly what I like to be. My name is Gianna Ezra. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, but I was born in Sydney, Australia. And my superpower wish as a young little girl, being anywhere between 6 to 10, was that as I drove down the street, I could remove the front facades off houses and see what was inside. It's a true story. It wasn't that I wanted to fly, I wanted to see inside. And I remember a time of my life when my parents were looking to rent homes. I would go to ballet and my mum would pick me up on a Saturday and we would go to inspections and I would run straight up the stairs to look at all the bedrooms. So I've always had an innate passion and love for interior design. And so choosing the course of interior architecture, which is what we call, I think, interior design here, where you're basically forming a house from the inside out, was a very easy decision for me. It just came very fluidly. Shortly after I started, I couldn't find product to facilitate my style, and so I began Tiles of Ezra. That's a little bit about my story, and that's how it all started. So it stemmed from me wanting to facilitate my own aesthetic, and so that in itself is a form of grit and pushing through when you can't find what you're looking for. But I will fast forward to your question, but that context was very important. So very soon after I started my business, I was called up randomly on the phone. I remember driving my mum to the airport because she still lives in Sydney and I live in Melbourne. And it was a guy saying to me, I've heard about you from my dentist and I want you to come and potentially be the host of a TV show. At that time, I think I was 23. And I was like, are you serious? Like, this is crazy. This is like a dream of mine. I rocked up. And I remember he told me, like, prepare something. So I wrote everything down and I was sitting in my car, like, reading it, memorizing it, which for me, it's just not the way. I don't memorize presentations. I just talk. And so that was something I was learning about myself as a young, early 20s, young girl. And I remember, like, I can pull myself together. Like, I'm cool with those things. I stood in front of the camera and it was like I had this out-of-body experience. I couldn't talk. I was so stuck in the moment. I didn't remember my lines. I couldn't talk. I jumbled. He's like, let's just start again. And for about 35 minutes, my talk was like, oh my God, you're what is going on? This is ridiculous. You failed. I can't believe this is happening. That's what I was focusing on as opposed to trying to get the job done. I didn't get it. It was between me and another woman. She got the job. But in the meantime, this producer said to me, Georgia, I think you've got something, but you need to practice. You need to get in front of the camera and you need to practice. And so shortly after, I went on my honeymoon with my husband and we spent 6 weeks throughout Central and South America. And I forced him to get out. It wasn't an iPhone then. It was like I don't even remember, like some form of camera that you could film on. And I'd be like, welcome to this hotel in Nicaragua. I'd be like, and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like looking and it's so embarrassing. And I was like cringing, but I forced myself to be embarrassed and shy. And I've got videos throughout like the whole thing. It was called, I can't remember. I like called it a whole series and I put it on YouTube. And I'm sure every one of my friends were like, she's hilariously lame. Like, what is going on here? And I was like, I think people still talk, like, and I forced myself to have a channel called Chit Chat with G. And like later, like years later, friends of mine were like, that was hilarious, like what you did. And I was like, I look back and I'm like, guys, today we're going to talk about, it was just hilarious, but I forced myself to. And I used that strong desire and that passion, and I'll never forget, he said, you need to practice. So I practiced and I practiced and I practiced for years. And then I was like, I don't really care. This is not something that is important to me, but I had the skill set. And instead of me just going, I failed, and this, and taking that rejection to heart and like turning back and never doing it again, I used that and I took the advice and I persevered, which is what grit is all about. Getting up when you get walled. Fast forward to 2021, maybe it was. Richie and I live in Melbourne. We live in a suburb in Melbourne. And we were asked to provide tile for another TV show. Maybe you know Jenny and Dave Mars. They have Fix It a Fabulous. Is that what it is? Yeah. They're the most divine people. We're very good friends now. And they approached us to supply tile. And we did. And in that phone call at 8:30 p.m. at night, in the middle of COVID, in our little suburb in Melbourne. Oh, rewind. Sorry, I know I'm like talking a lot. But it's important to know the detail.
To talk a lot.
It's important to know the detail because these little details are so relevant to this topic. So I would say like a year prior, I was speaking to my mentor and I said, Joanna and Chip just have a new channel. I'm like, I'm meant to be on that. I was like, I don't know how. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. I'm like across the world. And like I'd written to her on Instagram, like maybe she's gonna respond. Like I'd written, they were calling in casting things. I'd written, no one responded. I'm like, whatever, nothing. Then a year later, I'm reached out by this trade outs producer, and in the meeting, it was the middle of COVID, and I'm like, Richie, come sit with me. It's 8:30 at night. I ain't doing this alone. Like, you're gonna come with me in the meeting. And we spoke, and this guy is like, have you ever done TV before? And we're like, no. Within 1 week, we had a trade agreement with our production company. We put together a quick video trade agreement, and then we were pitched, and it was between HGTV and Magnolia Network, and Magnolia Network got the deal. So I think the lesson in that, there's two things. Number one, what's meant to be will be. And I think we all have to succumb to the full faith in God, in Hashem, in the universe, and what is meant to be will be. And like, really, that is so in alignment with grit, because I think we push back on what we want, and that is actually grit, physical grit. But as part of that, it's letting go of what you think you need and pushing and having full faith in that higher force, that your journey is meant to be your journey in the way that it comes out in front of you. So I think the minute I let go, the thing that I wanted all those years ago that I actually didn't want or care about anymore came to me. Not that I'm saying I didn't enjoy it and that it wasn't the most amazing experience, but it came to me in the timing that it was meant to. The people come into your life in the timing that they're meant to. And to really have that as an aligned thought when you talk about grit as well. Because I think it's so much of grit is not in the physical, it's in the mind, you know? And so that is how it came about. But there's one more thing that I want to bring up, which I forgot to mention. When we were emailed about supplying tiles, I did see the word producer in the title of the person that reached out to me. And so I remember saying to Richie, sorry, I'm going to use you. So in our relationship, I would say, I'm like more optimistic in opportunities. I'm like, let's go. And so I think naturally, in human nature, we're pessimistic, we're fearful. They'll never, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put myself out there. That's embarrassing. What if they reject me? What if they fail? All of these things that run through our mind, which of course I have all the time, every day. But I think I'm also not, I'm like, okay, so if they do, they do, you know, in true Mel Robbins style, let them, you know. So I wrote to him and I said, do you produce shows? I'm interested in talking about a TV show. Now, I could have not written that at all, but that was the seed that made him think of that when he spoke to us. And I swear I know that that is the reason we landed with the TV show, because I put the seed in his mind. And so I think when it comes to reaching out and putting yourself out there, yes, you can face rejection. I can tell you another huge rejection, embarrassing story. Do you want me to tell you that one?
We're here to
I
talk
can tell it later,
about,
unless you
okay.
have, we'll talk about it later, but like huge embarrassing rejection. So
there were so many times I wanted to interrupt, but because of my mindfulness training, I held myself back. But when I think what was happening for me and why I'm here and why we made this Thriving Mind story or series about this is that these are stories of the human mind. And because no one else knows what's in our own minds, we don't know that we're not alone in this. And so I'm just going to reiterate a few things. Also, you said allowing. And in my mindfulness meditation teacher training, it's kind of the Buddhist tradition, we talk about clinging, how we cling to what is, like what the expectation is. And sometimes when we let go, we realize that's not what the bigger picture was. And also the stories in our heads. Like, here you were with, I mean, who would know this? Like, that's such a beautiful story. I think everyone's family's got these fun stories of playfulness where we name it, what was the TV channel? What did you name it? G?
Chit Chat with G.
Chit Chat with G. I mean, I can remember my daughter used to, you know, when she was young, we have videos of her interviewing her younger siblings who couldn't even speak yet. And that playfulness, when we are in that state of playfulness is when all the beautiful things happen, and the blossoming and the art Jane, the creativity happens. But when we are, and as you said, we have this negativity bias, we have this we're wired to focus and scan for threats. So anything that's negative, we end up focusing on, and it inhibits us putting ourselves out there. So this is about you. You know, this is two of us sitting on a stage, but this is about you. We are doing this because every single fellow human out there, we have some, we are wired for certain things. We are wired to wish to be seen favorably in the eyes of others. We wish to be loved. That's just the bottom line. We care what others think. Rejection hurts. In fact, it stimulates the same part of the brain for physical pain. So putting ourselves out there or failing and feeling failure and then getting back up and trying to do something that could result in failure again is very scary. Yet you did it. You said something. You said, it's almost as if you got used to it. Or you said, yeah, but I just decided I was going to email. I can't even tell you how many things I'm scared to ask for. So I have this practice I do and things that I've learned to practice over time. And when I was, I started this business, I got in the tile industry at 27. You were 23. When I think about the amount of confidence I had when I was young, it was like lower than this fern. By the way, if anyone's a Zach Galifianakis fan, we're between two ferns right now. I want you to acknowledge that we did this on purpose. So you started to say that there was something else. And, what's going to happen is it's going to pop up in your head, all these things. Here you are on a platform where people are here. This is huge. It's getting recorded. You have this opportunity to share the truth, the stuff that goes on in your head. You're speaking to your husband. Like, everyone knows what it's like to be doing an event and have a family member there to support you and what really goes on behind the scenes. Share with us a little bit more. You said you had another story, and we said we're both spontaneous people. We're not gonna really have a script for this. We're gonna do some Q&A too, but why don't you share that? And then we'll do a little mindfulness practice, maybe some failure stuff, and then we'll go into some Q&A too. But I want you to share.
So this actually came up in my mind, like just as you were talking earlier. This is more of a physical failure in my mind, and I actually spiraled from it for about 3 days. And I think it reflected on maybe like an internal fear of looking unintelligent in public. That was actually like a huge, maybe a thing that I need to work on potentially, I don't know. Okay, so I love Bethany Frankel. Like, I really love her. I just don't know what it is, but I think she's so authentic, and I love her, and I think she's an incredible businesswoman, and I've always liked her. And one day I was sitting on my chair at work, and I saw on Instagram, she's like, I'm coming to Australia. And I was like, I am 100% going to see her. So I clicked on the thing, and then I'm like, I'm buying VIP. Like, I'm in those first 3 rows. I'm going to see her and take a video with her after. And so I bought it straight away. And from the minute I bought it, I'm like, I'm 100% going to put my hand up and stand up. Like, you get randomly selected, so you don't know if you are, but I was like, I am. Like, I know it in my bones, and we're going to connect, and I'm going to ask her a really relevant question, and blah, blah, blah. Fast forward a few months, she arrives, she speaks amazingly, she's amazing. There's like 4,000 people, maybe 5,000 people in the audience. It is a packed venue. I'm in the 3rd row. Questions, everyone puts up their hand, okay? Everyone's putting up their hand, and I was like, I knew what I was gonna ask if I got selected, and it was all about her, okay? It was like, I wanted to get a question about her. Anyway, so I put on my hand, and I was like this, and I got selected for a question. And then I stood up, and I'm like, you don't understand. When you, can you imagine you're standing up in front of 5,000 people behind you? Like, my heart, she would have been able to hear my heart outside of my chest. I was so nervous. And then I just froze, and I started talking about me, and I was like, I have this TV show, and I'm into, and I just had, again, this out-of-body experience. And I remember at first the audience were like, wow, and clapped because I talked about we have this TV show and I wanted to get your advice about this. And then I just kept waffling and waffling. And like there's 5,000 people in the audience. Everyone wants to ask a question and I just hear this. Suddenly I was like, is there a stampede? Like I heard something behind me and it was everyone's irritation by me. They were like, oh, like this and talking. And I turned around and I was like, oh my God, like I didn't know what to do. And I just quickly finished and then I like sat down and she was like, she answered in a way and I just went blank, right? And the way she answers was like, like she was just very honest. She gave me honest advice, but it was embarrassing honest advice. And then everyone laughed. And I couldn't have crawled like under my seat. Like I just wanted to like do this, be Sabrina and twiddle my nose and like disappear. I was like, oh my God. And then I spiraled. If the show comes to Australia, everyone's going to remember that girl in the TV show. She was so attention. No. Like my brain just for 3 days it spiraled. So that is the story that I want to share. And I can't say to you. And then like 3 days later, I thought about it and it was all gone because I thought, who cares? Like I still think about it and cringe at the situation, but it doesn't affect me in that same visceral way anymore. So that is a pure example of, flaking in a moment that was hugely embarrassing for me.
I could not have asked for a better example. By the way, as I said, we're winging this. I don't know any of the stuff that we're going to talk to. I'm very excited to hear about it because I actually did this with Jane yesterday. We were all about being spontaneous. Let's take the risk. So what's really interesting when you said that, just because I hold up the failure jar, a lot of times we don't even talk about the ickiness, that icky feeling of, oh my God, I did this. Yet when you say that, I am going to imagine that most of the people in the audience have had an experience similar to that, where it might not be on a stage in front of 5,000 people, but where you did something and you just wish you had a take back, right? Like it just didn't land well, and we stumble in life, and then we get in our heads, and that is where all the suffering happens, because then it's as if there's like a little bully in our heads making us feel like we are alone. And I'm going to define it, this feeling. It's called shame. And shame, the definition of shame is a very difficult emotion, but it is tied to the belief that we are unworthy of love and belonging. And being loved and belonging are actually survival needs. We cannot survive if we do not feel that we're loved and we belong. It eats away at our essence. So, in the spirit of that, that was a great segue because I'm going to go into the mindfulness practice. I'm going to ask a lot of you. I'm going to ask you to get weird. Megan, who just spoke earlier, she and I get to speak a little later today. Thank you. I enjoyed that. She prepped me for this speech right now. We get, we're going to bring in some things that have not been necessarily modeled or historically present in this industry. Over the last 3 years, Coverings has embraced mindfulness, and we're sharing the failures. And not even just, I don't even want to say, I don't know if the right word is failure, but I'm going to say sometimes mistakes, because things where we wanted a redo, right? The problem is not that we messed up and we were imperfect or awkward or looked silly, but rather that we hold that shame. Shame can only exist in a hidden space. Once you let it out, it can't fester away and eat at you. And like the fact that you shared this here, don't you love being that person that does that? Like that feels good.
Well, you were talking, I just thought in my head, like every person in that audience went home and didn't think about it again.
Or thought about that could happen to me or that did happen to me.
Right.
They didn't think about your experience.
No, they're like, it's like out of their mind. And I think that's the idea of this whole like segment, is a lot of it's in our head.
It's our own experiences we think about. When you talked about the negativity bias, how we focus on the negative, we're all in our own heads. I said to my kids when they were in middle school, like, don't be the kid that peaks in middle school. Like, you're supposed to be, everyone there is just either wants to be seen or invisible. They're all existing in their own heads. The suffering happens in our heads. So we're going to work a little bit on that. And by the way, the failure jar, this is like for your own mind. And if you, I have paper we can write it on. I do this with the police force. I'll share some stuff with you a little later. Please come join in our community. Take your moment to arrive. You're in perfect time because we're going to do a little practice now. So you came in a great time. So what I am going to ask of all of you is we're going to do a little meditation, a little mindfulness meditation. So if you are new to meditation, there is no end goal. It's just about the practice. You can't be good or bad at it. Sorry, you fabulous seasoned meditators. This is just about the practice. So what we're going to practice is, this is very much psychology based. It's not just woo-woo wacky stuff. There's also some neuroscience behind it. And it's called self-compassion. I've done an intensive training in mindful self-compassion with, a Harvard psychologist, and I'm not trying to make it sound impressive. I'm trying to make it sound real, like there is some research behind this. So I'm going to share this with you because it has helped a lot of people with addiction, with trauma. If you knew what the stuff that comes out of the police force that I learned from them when they practice self-compassion, and I see these big brawny guys crying with tears coming down their face, it's a beautiful thing. And self-compassion is not necessarily something that is modeled for us in the construction industry. No, Megan's going, no, it's not. So we're going to model it. We got like some amazing people here to model it with us, and your eyes are going to be closed so no one's judging you, or if they are, then you won't know, and they're in their own heads, don't worry. So go ahead and gently close your eyes. Know that you can breathe and cough and sneeze, and you don't need to sit still like a mannequin. And I want you to just settle into a moment of just noticing what it's like to have your eyes closed. And go ahead and just let your eyes grow a little bit heavy. So kind of release any need to open them, if you can do that. And I want you to do something that's probably going to sound like a different language than you've ever heard, but I want you to set an intention to just be a kind and loving witness to this experience. So every time your mind kind of enters, a thought comes in and says, you're doing this wrong, or what's that sound over there, or did I leave my hotel key in the room? Just come back to just being this kind, gentle witness, kind and loving witness. And know this is for your mind only. So I want you to bring to mind a past failure or mistake, or anything that, was difficult that you experienced that someone else witnessed or knew about. So Georgia's example was 5,000 people. It could be one other person, anything like that, where you just, if you would have chosen not to let that happen the way it did. A moment in which you felt exposed and uncomfortable, and perhaps judged by your failure or mess up, your mistake. And this could be as a child or any time in your life, or recent. No need to overthink or choose the perfect event, because I'm sure there are many, but just allow what comes to mind. And just give a moment to let yourself remember this moment. And now I want you to let it be felt in the body. Just for a moment, feel the discomfort in the body to the extent that you can. And of course, while knowing that you're safe here, you're in a room with a community of fellow humans. And perhaps you can allow just a few words to form, describing what happened. So not a whole story, but just the facts without judging. So maybe you could say to yourself, I messed up, or I was embarrassed, I was hurt, or I hurt someone, or even I just had an imperfect moment. So as opposed to having a whole story, just a few words, non-judgmental words. And now we're going to move into this beautiful practice of self-compassion. It's got 3 components, and the first one is mindfulness. So without judging or denying, I want you to just acknowledge it happened. Validate the pain. So this is a little different than trying to wish it didn't happen. It did. It's okay. Validate it. You could even say to yourself, this is really hard to experience, to feel. And then we bring in the second part of common humanity, which is common humanity. Knowing that all humans make errors. You are not alone. We are all sitting in this room with eyes closed. And I want you to feel this connection to others. Perhaps even say to yourself in this moment, I am not alone. Because you are not. And then we bring in the third part, self-kindness. So with your eyes still closed, I want you to gently place your hand on your heart or on a part of the body that feels nurturing. When we do that, we kind of give ourselves a little chemical hug. We can release a brain chemical called oxytocin. That's what makes us feel connected. It's what's released when we hug or hold a baby, feel human contact. And so that's why we put the hand on the heart. And I want you to say to yourself in your mind, it's okay, sweetheart, or dude, or buddy, or maybe a term of endearment that's used that sounds nurturing. And I want you to allow full acceptance. Support yourself. Tell yourself it is okay to be human, to be like every other human. And now I want you to just whisper to yourself, everyone experiences mistakes and failures and mess-ups. Everyone feels exposed and uncomfortable in these moments. Everyone feels judged by others at times. So I want you to hold yourself with compassion in this moment instead of being another judge. In this moment, you are the kind, gentle witness to your experience. And with eyes still closed, I want you to just kind of visualize yourself from above, going above this room and looking down at all the people in it with our hands on our hearts. And I want you to hold yourself in compassion and then let that compassion spread around into this room, knowing that we all have failed, messed up, felt judged and unsafe. And we can all be kind witnesses to our experience. And perhaps we will all be changed in some way by this experience. So let's just take one more breath together. Thank you so much. So that is a self-compassion practice, and it took me so much courage to do it. I was hired to teach mindfulness meditation to the police force in their crisis intervention training, and the police captain was a meditator, and he said, do whatever you want. And so I started the self-compassion practice, and I thought I was so scared. I thought I was going to be the biggest weirdo. I was weird, and without negating that, it was so powerful. There were tears, and we really, that group where I first did it, we felt so much connection. And I forgot to write down some of the mistakes that people shared. But what I'm going to do, we're going to do a little practice. I'm also going to share, did I put this slide? Okay, so neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change in response to repeated experiences. What that means is what we practice grows stronger. We can rewire circuits in the brain. Megan talked about this morning. And we can actually change the form and function of the brain by repeated experiences. So what that means is whatever we practice grows stronger. Imagine if you started practicing self-compassion instead of self-judgment. So I'm going to share something, and I hope you can see this on the screen. I sent this to Georgia, like we were we, in our little text messages, 17-hour time change apart, we would listen. And this is my own resume of failure. So I do this with executive teams. It was also very scary doing it the first time because they hired me, and then I have to share all the things I failed at. So a few fun ones. Let's see. I mean, so many things I failed at. You're welcome to look at it, but there's some that, were childhood failures that are fun and funny and lighthearted, but at the time they were agony. I felt so much shame for so many of these things. So what we're going to do is, if anyone wants to, let me just see what my next slide is. Oh, I do have it. So I'm taking the focus off me, because we always, when we're overthinking, we go into me, right? And we get in our heads. So these are just a few failures. I'm going to read them to you. So the police force, these are from students of mine, corporate lawyers, tile industry, juvenile court systems, psychologists. These are some things they failed. And maybe if you want, I can read it. You can close your eyes or I'll read it to you. You can read it. 3 driver's tests, saving my marriage, staying sober again, my biggest job interview, being a father. This next one people will like. Every diet ever. My citizenship test. One of my students told me, I let my child see me cheat on their mother. My childhood best friend, I failed him. Not stopping sergeant officers from hurting someone. And one that has come up almost in every group I ever teach, finding love. I failed at finding love. So Einstein says to increase your success rate, we need to increase our failure rate. So I have a little failure jar. Anyone afterwards, if you want to come write one and put it in here, because remember I said shame exists in silence and secrecy. You can throw it in here. I don't know your handwriting. Don't put your name on it. You let it out there. It is not festering in your head anymore. And all of these came from, other humans. So now I'm going to go back to, so we can do a mic. We can run a mic if you want to do questions for Georgia. We have 15 minutes, which is so awesome. If anyone has questions, raise your hand and we can get you a mic, or I can, if you want to go in and...
I do have a few more things to say, but I'm happy for Q&A if anyone has, but I can also just talk as well. So one of the things that I really wanted to talk about today was when we think about grit and perseverance, that means so many things to so many people in so many forms. But one of the main things that comes to my mind is the minutia of every day. So today we're all sitting here in this fabulous convention center together, going for drinks at night, connecting, rejuvenated, inspired, seeing ranges, all these things that we want to do, but that's the extraordinary. That's not the ordinary day, that we all live. Every day we wake up, we have a myriad of things to do. We make breakfast, we have a coffee or the tea, we've got to drop the kids to school or pack their lunches, we've got to get to the office, we've got to do our work. There's great things, hard things, stressful things. There's things all the way through the day. And I think that, not every day is wonderful, and it's about really persevering through every single day. They say the greatest successes are the push-throughs of all the little days that create the success at the end. No one's seeing the years, the days, the hours, the minutes, and I always say an entire book is built of pages which are filled with words and paragraphs which are filled with letters, and that is every day of our lives which we form together. And I think that is the power of perseverance to get us somewhere. And again, as you wrote, it's led by passion. There's a purpose, there's a direction. I mean, half the time most of us would be confused about even the direction we want. I think that's a big confusing topic. But in a moment in time, in a day, we know something. And if we have that purpose and we can go forward, that's the minutia of the grit of moving forward. That didn't make sense. The power of the grit. You understand what I mean. And I don't see that as a failure. I just see that as, sometimes my sentences don't make sense. And another thing that I would say is hugely, that comes to my mind in a big way. I mean, I'm rejected all the time, by the way. I think we all are. And I think we think other people are not. But I'm rejected all the time. I constantly am not even responded to by any magazine editor in Australia. Like it's like I'll send through because I'm an interior architect, I'll send through my projects, nothing, even ones that I'm friendly with. I'm not good enough, I'm not the caliber of that magazine, But I don't think like that anymore, to be honest. But that was many years in the past. So many times my emails aren't responded to. There's a lot of rejection, but I think I've learned now that I actually don't see that as like a door closes and that's rejection. I just see like, okay, in this moment, in this time, that's not for me, but like something comes through. 5 years ago, before COVID, I was coming to coverings, and the first thing I thought to myself, I was like, how cool if I was a guest speaker at coverings. Honestly, I thought that. And I had said it to like, maybe my husband at the time. And then I never went to coverings because it got cancelled and we had it booked and everything. And then fast forward, I came. I knew no one in America. I met incredible partners. Jonathan from Trident Stone, who distributes our tiles in America. The most incredible human. That was all because of things that, I've personally been through. I got to connect with incredible people. I now feel like I'm part of this amazing tile and stone community that I've never, that does not exist in Australia. I think what you guys have in America is so unique. Last year, I came to coverings, and because of our mutual religion, we met at an event, and I'm now a guest speaker at coverings. Like the irony of the flow and what is meant to be is astounding most of the time. So I think that is that idea of perseverance, but also letting be what is meant to be is hugely important.
And as she's saying that, by the way, I never thought, I'm not a public speaker. I've somehow found myself here. So as you're saying that, I'm pinching myself going, I'm on the stage with Georgia Ezra. Like, I had the courage to ask her to do this. So I'm going to share something. When you said that, it's so amazing. I think it's really important because we both have our own stories in our heads. And everyone here has a story in your head. And everyone came to this event for a reason. Maybe some of you think your reason was your boss said you had to come or sent you, but a lot of it is you want something to happen here. And most of us, if we peel down the layers, it's human connection. It's community building, not networking because I made a contact that I can put in my phone and ask something of this person, but human connection, remembering each other, looking each other in the eyes, and knowing that we have something in common. So when I've done a lot of research on grit with Angela Duckworth. Hi, Chris. And one of the things she wrote about, she has a TED Talk, and she talks about, she was talking about grit, and Carol Dweck, who created the concept of growth mindset, which kind of comes into grit. Growth mindset is this idea that our mindset and our ability to learn and even our talent can be developed. It's not fixed. We can grow. And she talked about a school in Chicago where these children started out, failing, and they had no resources in this community. And what the school did was they switched their grading system, and if anyone failed, they got a grade of not yet. And it was the yet, this bridge from now to yet. And so you said, that happened, you got rejected, or however we want to say, it didn't happen yet. So every time there's a failure, you stumble in some way, or you mess up, or you get a rejection, I want you to remember that is not a no, it is a not yet. Maybe the opportunity wasn't right, but that is what all of this is about. And, no matter what, we are all humans, we all have thoughts, and we all have feelings. Thoughts and feelings. And so, no one is above that. We sometimes pretend, I don't care what people think, and I don't feel anything when that happens. We do. We're wired to. We're wired to live. Our chance of survival is much greater in communities, in tribes. So, that's what this is about, and that's why you're sitting here. And you sharing that, is amazing because we could just look up here and she's beautiful and we know she's successful if you know Tiles of Ezra, but there's a whole human being with all kinds of battles and who had to leave her children and bring her husband, who's God knows the most patient man. If he could train husbands, I think that should be your career. There's a whole family that's affected by what's in our heads and are the decisions we make. So I'm seeing familiar faces, so we still have a little bit of time, so we could, if anyone wants to ask questions, otherwise I'll ask you or I'll let you speak freely. I can also, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stick this over here, and if anyone wants to, I'll leave this, wants to add, your own failures, like it's kind of like releasing it or burning it or throwing it into the universe. Every time I do it, I always put my own in. I could just announce one. I mean, I put my foot in my mouth yesterday. I made a joke. It didn't land well with someone I love. I think it was maybe okay, maybe not. So I mean, we all have stuff in our heads and do stuff that's not right. And there was a panel earlier of people I love, and one of them's here. And each one of them, because they know that I always talk about stage fright, they came up to me and said, like, I'm nervous. And I was like, if only everyone on the stage told the person next to them that they were nervous, then they could all feel more human connection to that. Anyway, if you have a question, no pressure. Otherwise, we can ask Georgia a little bit more. I'm going to ask you a little bit more. Tell me.
I've got something to say.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you have something to say.
So I just going to interrupt. I think one of the other things that is so, which when I was thinking about this topic, and you were just talking now, when we think about grit and perseverance, it's also us moving forward and trudging through even during very difficult times, or even just mundane times, just like a daily, just keep moving forward even when you don't want to and you want to give up. And I think you asked this the other day. You were like, okay, let's do an exercise. Put your hands up in this room if you've once in your head, just once or more, let's just say once, so have said to yourself, I'm done. Like I'm done. Okay, I'm going to put up my hand up. Yeah. Okay, hello. So when you're feeling those feelings, are you thinking in your head, oh yeah, let's go, let's write this amazing thing, or let's do this project, or no, because you're in this low mindset, and so your inspiration is out the window. You don't want to do anything. You just want to watch Netflix or go for a walk or just do something that you can eat chocolate or whatever it is, okay? So I think that half of the element of grit comes in a physical context, and most of it, well, let's just say part of it comes in physical, part of it comes in an emotional. And sometimes we put ourselves there, like it's not even there. It's not even a thing that we need to feel that way. So I don't know if I'm making sense. It's making sense to me. I just feel like but let's say, for example, you do something, let's say you sell tiles or you sell stone, and you do a great job, everything's great, everyone's happy with you, and then you see someone or another company selling stone too, and their stone's beautiful. Okay, you can either go, I like my stone, and put your blinkers on. I'm just giving like a random example, by the way. That's like a simple one that can come to mind. Or you can go, look what they're doing, I'm so bad, theirs is so nice, and then you spiral, and then you're like, I'm a failure. And then, we get ourselves into these places, as you said, wired for it, human nature, the worry of things that don't actually exist and that evidence doesn't point towards. All of that is so interlinked with this idea of perseverance and grit, because even when you're in those mindsets, you have to pick yourself up and get out. And I know, for me, I'm always like, I'm not a victim. Like, you're not a victim, Georgia. Like, hello, snap out. So the minute I get in those, I'm like 24 hours and then you're out. I'll give myself the time to feel it, and then like, nah, get on. Let's go. Like, I'm not breeding into this. And I think it's having that practice that's really helped me through like 15, 16 years of business of rejection, and then you get something, and then rejection, and then something, and it's like the constant building. But you can't work, have a business, have aspirations, go forward without getting back up. Like, that's literally the entire paved journey is not doors opening. It's doors closed and then finding another one, and then doors closed and finding another one. And if every door closes, and you, like with every door that closes, if that then spirals you down into something that you can't move on, you need to find systems to maneuver your way and believe in yourself. So this is a huge topic. It's like very interlinked. As I'm talking, I'm like, that segues into that. Yeah.
You explained that really well. And what you said when you said, am I making sense? Yes, because what happens is, and this Thriving Minds is about mindset, so I want to be really clear that sometimes we did the moment to arrive. During the day, we will be blindsided by things. So if I define stress, I use the Cleveland Clinic's definition. Stress is the body's reaction to change, requiring an adjustment or a response. It's the body reacting to change, but that is generally an unexpected, unwelcomed change. Stress serves a purpose. It agitates us into seeking relief from the stressor. So we can be blindsided by a thought in our head. There doesn't need to be an external stimulus. It can come from within our heads. And so when you were talking about that, you said something specific. You said, I'm not a victim. And I want to be really clear. When I teach self-compassion, a lot of people think, oh, self-compassion means you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're a victim. It is the opposite of that. It is allowing yourself to feel it. You said, I give myself a day to feel it. You feel it. But instead of feeling like the victim who is helpless, you offer yourself what maybe you'd want from your best friend, kindness, and for your pain to be validated and witnessed. We can witness our own pain. So you're saying that's how you get back up, because that's what grit is. It's like the resilience part. We have the passion. We lose the passion when we are depleted. And how do we get back up? You said you get yourself back up. You take your day, and then you give yourself and I mean, you're obviously doing that, like, because what we practice grows stronger because of neuroplasticity. You have made that become a reflex. Like, my brain now knows there is a way out of this. And I'm not making it sound easy. Like, we get knocked down and we feel depleted. I mean, we're human. You got here and you're here, and I know from our phone conversations that are not simultaneous, they're 17 hours apart. We leave each other messages. You know, our days, stuff happens during the day and we're just kind of sharing our thoughts. I mean, we could make a book out of our messages, but you've said to me, you know, and then she always ends it with like this beautiful, enlightening message, and I'm like, oh, I needed that right now. You know, so we can give that to ourselves. We can get it from others, but I want us to get it from ourselves. I have been cued that it is time to go. Thank you so much. And Georgia's stuff is being displayed at, I think I have a slide, booth Triton Stone. I've been saying Triton. I'm so sorry.
Triton.
Triton Stone, which is booth 150, which is all the way, if you walk the perimeter, you'll find it. And it is magnificent, and it's a tiny booth. It's not overwhelming, and it's magical, and I suggest you go see it. And we have one more session today. Thriving Minds, 2 to 3 p.m. in the Galvanized Lounge, another one of these. And I'm also speaking in 45 minutes at, oh my gosh, on a wellness panel in room S230C. You can take a photo, and you can scan the code if you want. Thank you so much. And just, if you please go watch the series Design Down Under, which I'm going to do, and tell everyone that you know this person.
Thanks, guys.